Hello, everyone. Welcome to another weekly episode of Shadow Space. I am so excited about today's topic, but before we dive into our topic for today, I just want to say to all of my returning listeners, as always, thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know it means the world to me, and words just cannot describe all of the support that I have received and that I continue to receive from you guys. So I just want to say thank you. This week I was so blown away because I was looking at my podcast analytics and I saw that I am drawing some listenership in different parts of the country. So I was so excited and just so thrilled to be able to be out there sharing my voice and hopefully making a difference and connecting with a larger community. So I really appreciate all of your support, and thank you for continuing to share my content. Thank you for continuing to spread the word. It means the world to me, and I am extremely grateful. Thank you. To all of my new listeners who are not familiar with who I am your host, Laura Brown. I am a certified breathing coach, a certified meditation coach, as well as a certified trauma-informed coach. So I publish weekly episodes on related to self-development, self-discovery, introspection, the shadow, of course, which is most often kind of our hidden beliefs, our patterns, our unconscious ideas of the self, and so much more that we dive into here. So I created this podcast to really be a guide, really for those who are seeking deeper understanding, or want to have better answers, or simply wanting to know more about themselves and areas that they can improve, where they might feel stuck, where we all sometimes feel stuck. So my podcast really just aims to guide anyone who's exploring more within themselves and want to have better answers, or at least know where to start. So that's kind of my podcast in a nutshell. However, I do like to share a full disclaimer that I am not a licensed therapist. And by all means, the topics and ideas that I share on my podcast are not meant to diagnose or treat anyone. These topics that I share are just references to my own personal experiences and my journey. So I always like to say that because I know it's really important to really seek the support that we need in the right places. And so I like to always advise anyone I speak to who may be experiencing some issues or a level of maybe suffering in their life to seek the support and professional help that is available to you. And I encourage everyone to really use their best discernment when it comes to your health and well-being, because it is so important. There's so much support out there, and I know it's not always easy to find that support or even to begin to reach out. But I really encourage you guys, as you are working on yourself, if you find that there's a level of additional support or maybe professional advice that you may need, please reach out. It is so important, and it's really important to me to also say that, okay? All right. So with all that being said, I just want to dive into our topic today. So today I wanted to talk about negativity. How about that for a topic? And I wanted to share my thoughts on this because I had an experience myself regarding negativity this week that kind of surprised me. And, I'll share a quick story, and I apologize in advance if this story gets long, because I am known to be very long-winded sometimes, and I am working to really narrow things down for you guys. So hang in there, be patient with me, and I promise I will get somewhere with my story, okay? All right, so here's what I want to say before we even start on, just kind of diving deep into negativity. Negativity affects all of us, right? One of actually the most surprising things I learned about negativity, I was listening to the man I like to call my mentor, Reverend Michael B. Beckwith. For those of you who are not familiar with him, please check him out. He's transformed my life in the most amazing ways. His work, I should say, has transformed my life in the most incredible ways. And so I was listening to an Instagram live show he had with a collaborator, and they were talking about negativity. And one of the things they were talking about is how our brain is wired with a negativity bias. So to begin with, we are already in a lose-lose situation with our mind, because our mind is already predispositioned to be negative. Okay. So that was very enlightening for me because I wasn't aware of that. I'm sure I've heard it somewhere before, but it was so important for me to understand that. And so, if you're out there and you find yourself in a negativity loop all the time, I want you to know that it is not your fault, right? Sometimes we can feed into these negativity cycles, right? But other times it's just how we are wired to begin with. And so we have to actively work to be positive. That's the secret. We are already coming out the gate with a negative mind whose bias is always to look for things that are wrong and the worst case scenarios. So when we have some level of awareness around this, we can begin to really kind of navigate the space a little bit better. At least for me, that's what it did for me, because I said, oh, how interesting is that? So I actually felt set up. I'm like, really? So we actually have to work extremely and 10 times harder to be positive? I thought that it was the other way around. So anyway, if you are out there and people always say you're negative Nelly, or you're always negative and yada, yada, yada. I just want you to know that you are not crazy. You are not alone. We're all wired this way. Okay. All right. So that's the one thing I wanted to get out the way with negativity. And then now I'm going to share my story. So what happened for me this week, which was interesting, was that I experienced a little bit of a back bruise at the gym. This has happened to me for a couple of weeks now. And anyone who knows me knows I love to work out. The gym is my therapy. This is where I gain a lot of mental clarity. I love it. I'm one of those weird people who enjoys working out. I love the physical aspect of working out, but for me, it's more so the mental aspect. The fact that I can just zone in and zone out. It's my space, right? I like to even call it my sacred space. So anyway, so I usually work out 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on. And so this week I was on my second day, which is also my least favorite day because it's leg day. And anyone who also knows me understands how much I despise leg days. But nonetheless, I was doing my leg day routine, working out, and I was just feeling good. I was in the zone, and I was kind of towards the tail end of my workout, and I was doing hip abductors. And so I went a little bit heavy on the weight, I believe. Now that I look back, I'm like, maybe I should have not stretched myself that far, but I did, because I always like to challenge myself. So towards the end of my workout, I was like, all right, I feel good. I had 1 or 2 more machines to hit, and then I would have been done. So I sat on the hip abductor machine. I hunched over for like a minute, and I was like, I'm just going to stretch here for a minute before I move on. And I did. And so as I was getting up, I felt a little bit of a pinch on my lower back. So I thought, it's just the way I'm sitting. And I was like, no big deal. That's not an issue. Just go on. And so as I got off the machine and I was walking towards the machine I was going to, I felt more pain. And so I was like, that's interesting. And just the further I kept walking, the more I felt my lower back was just in pain. And I was like, okay, that's a signal for me to just stop, because I feel the same type of pain that I felt the first time I got injured. And so I was like, I need to stop. And I did. And so I left. And then as I was leaving, of course, to make matters worse, it was downpour. It was like pouring out. It was a monsoon outside. And so I'm already feeling myself getting angry, mad at myself. I don't know why I did. And as I was driving off, I just started to feel all of these negative thoughts. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can I not do my workouts like I always do every single week? What's going on now? Blah, 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 blah. And so all of these, negative thoughts started to pop up in my mind. So I was like, all right, fine. It's raining. It's not a great day. You find all the excuses to pile on. And I was. And so I drove off. As by the time I got home, that spiral had started to escalate. And now I'm thinking, wow, maybe I'm old. Maybe I just can't do what I used to do anymore. Maybe something's really wrong with me. How come everybody else can seem to do what I'm doing and be fine? Why is it me? This is the second time. I don't like this. Yada, yada, yada. And you guys know, you get the gist. And so as I was moving through my day, this escalated and snowballed into something way bigger that I did not expect. And at the time, as I'm going through this experience, I wasn't aware. Of course, I wasn't aware of how it was snowballing, but I was in it, right? And so I kept feeding into these thoughts, and the woe is me just kept on and on and on. And then it was like, all right, what else can I pile on? Okay, my personal life, my professional life, poor me, right? And then by the time I finished eating, it was me and God. God, why do you do this to me? Why doesn't anything ever work out for me? I mean, it was crazy to say the least, right? I was in the space, me and God, arguing with God, blaming God. That's how far I had gotten into the darkness. So the thoughts just kept piling on and snowballing and becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time I was done with it, I was in such dark thoughts that it led me to a place that I never thought I would find myself, but I did find myself there. And that's why I want to share this, because it's so important to talk about this. And I don't feel like many of us share this, but I had gotten myself into this very dark space of not wanting to be here anymore, and it was just kind of shocking that it started from a small back bruise into now seemingly this dark place, right, where I found myself. And it was the thoughts of, why even bother? I don't even want to be here. Nothing I do matters. This and that and the other. And so I found myself there, and the only way I could get myself, to find grounding, because I knew I had to find some level of grounding, was to pray, cry it out, and sleep. And so when I got up from my nap, I started to reflect, because it was crazy. It was just like a dark curtain came over me, and all of these things took place maybe within 6 hours from when it started. And then when I got up from my nap, everything was crystal clear again. But I was interested in understanding why it went there. And that's why I'm sharing this, because the negativity that we are already predispositioned to, as well as the one we feed into, creates this huge, massive snowball effect of negativity. And sometimes it can get out of control to the point where we can't handle it anymore, because the more you feed into the thoughts, the more they come. And so our brain is already wired, right, to to show us proof and find confirmation for all the things that we're thinking. And so if we're always thinking worst case scenario or negative thoughts, guess what? It's going to find more of that and feed it to us. And if we attach our thoughts to it, we create more of that. And so now we're creating this state of negativity that we just can't handle. And that's how I felt. And so I really like to pride myself in knowing myself really well and knowing that I have tools I can use in certain situations. But it's also important to mention that we're all human. And sometimes the emotions are so intense that we just can't manage, no matter what the tools are that we have. And so in a situation like this, I always told myself, I said, I understand emotions enough to where I know when things are spiraling, one of the best things you can do to support yourself is to find grounding. And so for me, I knew immediately I had to find some level of stillness. And my level of stillness was to pray, was to cry, it was to sleep, so that I can make sure that I can contain the emotional outburst that was happening. And so I just really wanted to share that because I know there's so many people out there who feel alone, who may be suffering, who are feeling like no one can understand them. And this is a very scary place to be. This is a dark place we can all find ourselves at, and it's no fault of our own. As I said very early on the topic, very early on, we are already wired this way. Our mind is wired this way, right? So we can't continue to blame ourselves for being negative when we are already coming out the gate negative. But we can find ways, right, to create more positivity. We have to work hard to be positive, right? And so some of the tools that we can use for ourselves are, like I said, grounding. Find a way to ground yourself. But also there's, various ways where we can bring awareness around what's happening. Granted, it can be very difficult when you're in that situation. As it's transpiring, it might be very difficult, right? To even know what to reach for, who to reach for, how to get out of it. But if we can remember, right, to bring some level of awareness around what is happening, we can create a conscious effort, right, to shift our thoughts and focus on something positive so that we can continue to create more of that. But the negativity is there. It happens to all of us. And it's not that you know more or you know less. It's not that, someone has more research and is backed by science that they can get out of negativity. I think it's just a human experience that we all go through. And so for me, I wanted to share that because I know there's a lot of people that I talk to who sometimes may feel so stuck. They can't see ahead of themselves. They feel like there's no way out. Maybe they feel hopeless. Maybe they feel like, they're stuck, and this is what they're meant to experience. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And with that, it's also important to mention that if you ever find yourself in a dark place, like I found myself, because that was frightening, to be honest, and you need that support, the professional help, please reach out to someone, reach out to a friend, reach out to an acquaintance, reach out to someone anonymously. There's so many groups out there to really lean on, someone that can help guide you. And just know that you're not alone, right? And that's what's also important to demystify, because I think everybody thinks, well, I see people who are always happy and they're always laughing, they're smiling, they can't be negative. And quite honestly, there's also this narrative in our society now that, and I even engage in this, but now I have a whole new respect for this. But there's this narrative that I don't want to be around negative people. I don't want negative energy in my space. I mean, yeah, theoretically, nobody does. But some people are actually suffering and need the help, right? And sometimes there's nothing we can do to help ourselves individually. Sometimes we need to reach out and have that collective or just community support. And so I just wanted to share my experience because it just led me to understand myself from a whole new perspective, you know? And that was very humbling, because nobody deserves to be in a dark space or just really having dark thoughts. But when you go through an experience like that, it really humbles you in a different way because it reminds you of your humanness, right? And so for me, I always like to share with anyone, my listeners, or just anyone I speak to who may be having similar thoughts, to find a way to encourage them, right? To know first and foremost that you're not alone, because that's the other thing. When you feel like you're alone, like when I was going through this, I didn't feel like I could share with anyone because it was overwhelming, and it gets really overwhelming really quickly. And that's the extreme part of negativity. It's not always extreme, but that's the extreme part of negativity. And when you find yourself in this extreme part, you can really feel isolated. And that is the scary part, where you don't feel like you can reach out, where you don't feel like you can talk to someone, where you don't feel like you can, even have someone who can relate to you. So that's the part that I really wanted to kind of highlight, because I felt that way. I felt like, okay, gosh, I have all the tools and I know what I can do to help myself and support myself, yet I can't seem to get out of this state. And so when, again, after all of that transpired and I reflected back, that's what I drew out of it. It was like, oh, okay, I need to understand why this happened, right? And so one small thing, which is the back bruise, is what I consider a small thing anyway in the context of life. There's so much happening out there. So for me, a small back bruise led to the snowball effect of things that I just couldn't control anymore. And that's how the negativity spiral happens. And that's how you can find yourself in this negativity loop that you don't feel like you can overcome. So I wanted to share that with you all. As always, you guys know, I share as much as I can because it's so important for me to be real and really be candid and be honest about my own journey with all of you all, my listeners, as well as, if someone asks me, I always would like to be able to share authentically from my own perspective what I have experienced, because I think that is the best way to learn, and that's the best way we can empower each other, right? Through our own growth and journey and through our own process of evolving. And so I hope this episode was helpful to you guys in some way, and enlightening in some way, And as I said, if you guys find yourselves in a place where you don't feel like you can overcome this by yourself, please know that there is help and that you can always lean on somebody, or you can always talk to somebody. Don't ever feel like you're alone in your thoughts. Don't ever feel like you're siloed or isolated and that you're the only negative person in a world of positivity. That's not true. It's simply not true. As much as we all want to be positive 100% of the time, it's just very unrealistic. We live in a world of cause and effect. And so we're always going to be challenged in some way, and we're always learning and we're always growing. So don't ever feel like you're alone, right? Because that is in my perspective, that's where it can get really dicey and very dangerous, when you feel like you're just by yourself. Okay. So as always, I just hope this was insightful for you guys and always enlightening in some way. So please share as much as you can with someone who might need to hear this, or continue to come back here if you want to really just continue to find the support within this episode or the content that I share. And you can also reach out to me anytime. I'm always available and open, really, to connect with you all. Okay. And my goal is always to build a community where we can empower each other and support each other, right? And see each other grow, because that's just such a beautiful thing. So I hope you guys reach out. And as always, please remember to continue to spread your light. It is so needed, so important, so valuable. And also remember the light exists within you. Okay? As always, love and light. Peace and blessings, guys. And have a fantastic weekend. And I look forward to chatting with you guys again on my next episode. All right, guys. Bye.